welcome to this week's episode of the Moody Gooners podcast. My name is Jason, and with me as always is Paul. And in today's episode, we're a bit late in this one, but we're going to be running over and reviewing the Crystal Palace game that happened on Monday night. Just a little quick sort of bit of housekeeping, a little bit about us. So we're an Arsenal podcast with a bit of a difference. We like to put a bit of a focus on mental health. We think it's really important, to sort of highlight that. It's top of the agenda for us. And each week we're going to be making a bold prediction where we sort of, work out what the forecast for the next week's games are going to be. And the proceeds from those, predictions, if we get them wrong, that is, they all then get donated to the charity Mind, which is the charity of our choice. Let's sort of kick things off. How you doing, Paul? You well?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks. I think it was a nice sort of relief, I think, after the game on Monday. It's one of those ones where it wasn't enjoyable, but you almost kind of get like a nice buzz with a game like that, probably more so than you would do like a regulation 2 or 3-0 victory. So feeling good this week. I'm just glad 6 points on the board. It was a hard fought thing in the end, as we know, but glad we're there, and now starting to look forward into the the game of the weekend. How about you? How your sort of thoughts on it?
Really nervous before the game because I knew, as we all saw, the game would panned out. It was just really, really hard and edgy sort of game. So I was really nervous beforehand. I knew it was going to be tight, but man, it was just such a relief at the end to get over the line. And as you say, the points on the board, 2 games, 2 wins. Fulham up next. It's looking good. But properly nervous, man. I think what was our predictions last week? I think I said 2-1, didn't I?
We both said 2-1. Yeah, I think we both said 2-1. I might have had Martinelli actually with a goal contribution.
I think that may have been me. He technically he did have a goal contribution, didn't he? It was his free kick.
Yeah, it's the pre-assist.
The pre-assist. Yeah.
My favourite type of assist.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into it. Well, what do you think of the lineup first of all?
I think
still persisted again, like that Partey thing, didn't he?
Yeah, sort of. I'm starting to. I must admit, in this game, when I saw the line, we'll get into all of this anyway. I saw the lineup, and I had kind of the same kind of things. I was thinking, because we were coming up against, particularly as we're away from home, I thought we might well revert to something a bit similar to what we did last season. Obviously, we know that Timber was definitely obviously not going to play, and Zinchenko returned to training a few days before the game. And in hindsight, maybe it was probably a bit too early to throw him back in. But I think with Zinchenko, it felt like he was almost being pushed back into action maybe for this game. And I thought, given that we're away from home, and I just thought maybe we might revert back to it. But actually, when you think about it in hindsight, I've sort of had a few thoughts about it. When you think about what the classic Roy Hodgson Crystal Palace team is, it's very much cautious, defending in kind of a mid to low block. Yeah. Nice and structured. So the more I've actually thought about it, the more comfortable. I think there are certain games where I really hope Arteta does not do this. But actually, in retrospect, I've actually come to kind of warm to it slightly and thinking, because Crystal Palace do set up the way they do, particularly under Roy Hodgson, that we were going to enjoy a lot more possession, which probably then didn't mean that we could afford to play that role where Thomas Partey could move into midfield, invert from the right-hand fullback position. I've still got this thing, like a lot of Arsenal fans as well, around wanting Trossard to get more of a run out or of a game. But I personally didn't expect. The lineup for me pretty much picked itself. And like I say, in retrospect now, I do look back and think, okay, maybe Palace away is the kind of game where you can play that kind of thing. And maybe, I fully expect us to do it again against Fulham at the weekend. If we were going to the Etihad on the weekend or Anfield or something like that, I really would hope that we wouldn't do that. But, I do trust Arteta's judgment. He's not exactly a fool, is he, when it kind of comes to this stuff.
No, but, I know.
Where are you at with this current setup?
The problem is that what he did against Palace, where he lined up pretty much the same way that he did against Forest. I wasn't expecting it in this game. I really got to admit, I was thinking, right, Palace away, Selhurst Park, Monday night. It's not easy at the best of times. I genuinely thought that he would put Partey in midfield with Rice and Odegaard. I didn't think he would do what he did. I think what it goes against everything I said last week, actually, because last week I was thinking, home games, against Forest or Fulham or something, I can see him doing it, and you need that extra man to break down those stubborn sort of low blocks or those mid to low blocks. And so I really didn't think he would do this against Palace, so I was really quite surprised by it. I think part of the problem, thinking of this a bit further forward, I think part of the problem, especially for Thomas Partey, less so for Zinchenko, because Zinchenko, is a left back by trade, although he sort of comes in. But I think the bigger problem here is Havertz. I think what this has done by him signing Havertz, I'm going off key slightly here, but I'll go into it. Because of the price tag we've paid for him, he's almost under pressure to pick him each week. And so we play with three in midfield. And you've got Havertz there, Odegaard captain, you can't drop him, and you can't drop Rice. And so you're trying to shoehorn Thomas Partey into it. And I'm not sure in this type of game it necessarily worked as the way we wanted it to. I do like the idea and the concept, but I wonder how much of Partey being shunted out to the right back is, especially now, is due to Havertz being in the starting 11. What do you think?
So, mate, I've got a comment and also like a question for you at the same time. One comment I would have is that we paid 72 million for Nicola Pepe. It doesn't mean he's going to get in the team every week.
Yeah.
So I do feel like when you first sign a player, you're not just going to sign someone for 60 mil. I did feel that maybe it'd be more of a rotation option, to be honest, at the start. And I do think he is actually. I felt in this game he did. I think he ran like 13 Ks. He actually covered more distance than any other player. He was definitely a lot better defensively than I ever had credit for. We just need to kind of, I think hopefully when the chemistry starts to build, that's when we'll start to see more of his link-up play from an attacking thing. I mean, the other comment that I had though was that one thing I did notice in this game is Martinelli and Saka. Maybe more so the right-hand side, the right-hand flank. That whole side of our game that was so good last season with Ben White sort of connecting with Odegaard in the right hand channel, and then with Saka, and that trio just making beautiful patterns of play in and around the box. That now that we're doing this Thomas Partey thing, that side of our game is completely dead, because Thomas Partey for me, when he does obviously move forward, he then comes into the midfield at the same time, and it means Saka's often 2 against 1. He can't then really affect the game in an attacking sense. And I even noticed Martinelli, he got involved in the first minute or so with a chance where he was really open in the box, and for some reason sort of overthought it, and the chance fizzled away. But Martinelli wasn't really involved much until probably about 5 minutes before he came off. So I guess it's almost one of those things where you make a change here, you're probably going to get stronger in one area, i.e. through the central part of the field. But I'm a bit gutted, that chemistry between Ben White, Odegaard and Saka last season was so good. And that's now obviously dead, because Ben White's not going to be able to get out into the right wing from the centre half position. The only other thing I was thinking about is that it has been confirmed by James McNicholas on the Arscast that who obviously writes for The Athletic, that conversations have actually been had between the Saudis and Gabriel. So there is actually so that I think Arsenal definitely don't want to sell him, and I think Gabriel probably would like to stay at Arsenal as well. But I think the kind of money that would be being offered for him, you'd imagine that Gabriel being quite a tricky space at the moment, where that kind of money would definitely turn any player's head, in my view. So I do kind of wonder whether or not Arteta's just doing that probably until the end of the window, or the end of the Saudi window, which is about a week after our one, to try and sort of play a player whose future's maybe not up in the air. There's probably an element of that. Although when Gabriel did come on, he was definitely very pumped up.
Great. I thought he was properly
he
into
died
it.
for the cause, didn't he? So
yeah.
I guess like my question back to you would be: do you think the Gabriel rumours at the moment are impacting it, or do you think it's a very deliberate choice? I mean, I guess Arteta could put Kivior in at left-sided centre half if he needed to, I guess, but and revert to last season's formation a little bit. But what are your sort of thoughts around the Gabriel thing and how that's influencing sort of how we're currently set up?
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I know the rumours you're on about. They've surfaced over the last few days or so, but I'm not so. I mean, would we really get rid of him? I mean, what are we going to do to Timber's gone now? I mean, I know with the injury, I know the news came in that it's not it's not going to be a whole season. It's more like 7 months or so. But I mean, I've heard today that maybe Palace are looking at Tomiyasu as well. So, I mean, what have we got somebody else in the pipeline? We're going to leave ourselves a bit short, aren't we? This is what we did last season.
Well, my view is that unfortunately, the way football works, from what I can sort of my limited knowledge of not really working ever on the inside of the game, is that there will be the odd situation every now and then where you don't want to sell a player, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, you might just have to. Because let's not forget, Arsenal have spent a lot of money this summer. We're not able to sell. I think Tierney's now in active discussions with Real Sociedad for a loan move without any obligation to buy. Balogun does now look like he's offered us that Monaco are going to be the team. But I do kind of think Arsenal might be getting a bit twitchy with the fact they've not been able to sell anyone. And let's be honest, every player, like we don't like to admit it, but every single player has their price. If someone turned up with 300 million for Saka now, I'm not saying he's definitely going to go, but that, like, we'd have to consider anything can happen.
Yeah, but
I think if the Saudis hadn't come in or weren't doing it in this summer window the way they are, I think there's no way he's going. But this is probably one of those really rare situations where you have to say it's probably going to be a little bit up in the air for the next week until such time that the window shuts.
Does their transfer window close at the same time as ours, or is it later? I thought it was later, wasn't it?
I think it's the 7th of September, actually. So yeah, it's probably another 2 weeks from today, actually.
So these close. Yeah. I don't know. I think this. I mean, I've been a bit surprised that Gabriel wasn't in the starting lineup. I mean, I could understand in the Forest game because he wanted to try that Timber thing. He wanted those pacey centre backs, and I thought it was working really well up until Timber went off. Obviously, he's tried to replicate that a bit with the Palace game because I think Tomiyasu's got a bit more pace about him than Gabriel. He's a bit more mobile. I don't know. I mean, I hope Gabriel doesn't go. I mean, I really like him. He's a top centre back. I've heard the rumours as well that Real Madrid are looking at him possibly as a loan, to cover Militao because they've lost Militao, haven't they? So,
but I think the thing with Real Madrid though is they couldn't they couldn't really afford him. They probably can't pay him. They can probably pay him similar kind of wage, if not a little bit more, maybe than what he's on at Arsenal. And obviously, he would probably, if we're being honest, would be up for it. But I don't think they could probably afford the kind of fee that Al Ittihad, who's apparently the team that's looking at him, could afford. So I just think it's one of those situations in football where you don't want to sell the player. The player in normal situation doesn't want to go either, but the money's so good for both Arsenal and Gabriel that maybe it might be one of those awful things that just has to happen. And I reckon if it does, I have full trust in Arsenal that if it does get to that point, I reckon we've got 1 or 2 targets lined up now, and probably even having a few early conversations now, to be honest, just to kind of cover ourselves. I mean, I've got such rock solid faith at the moment in the way we're doing things as a club that I wouldn't be surprised. But obviously, I really hope he doesn't go. And I think his performance when he came on tells me that we need him, back in the squad, active and in the way he was last season.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't. I think we need him. We need the numbers. Bringing. I mean, with the again, rumours floating around about Mark Gahey as well from Palace, the centre back. Yeah, I mean, he'd be brilliant, but it's all a bit last minute, and I just think that I thought we'd done away with these sort of last minute deals and trying to push things through, and I'd be quite happy if Gabriel stuck around, to Truth be
Yeah,
told,
I'm exactly the same.
He's going to get the minutes.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any doubt in that. I just think it's one of those things in football that can just happen. And I think we'd struggle to get Mark Gahey out of Palace, this close to the end of the window from a rival Premier League side. It might be that we'd look for someone like Tap Sober at Bayer Leverkusen. We probably had to put a number in front of them that's going to make them, reluctantly pull the trigger on it, maybe. But yeah, I think all Arsenal fans are definitely wanting him to stay for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, coming back to the game, we went over the lineup quickly. What do you think? First half, what are your thoughts?
I think we were very much in control. It was at half time you kind of you looked at the stats, you saw, we'd had some kind of much more clear-cut chances of goal. My main sort of observation that probably won't go down well with a lot of people, but I just sort of noticed the first time I've really properly sort of analysed us this season. So I was sort of in and out of the Forest game a little bit, but I did feel that we were really slow to progress the ball. The passes were being knocked around, like rolling the ball. Yeah, and I hate that. It's one thing kind of having possession, and actually when you looked at half time, when you look at the chances we did create, like Martinelli got away, Declan Rice did a beautiful little scooped pass for Nketiah who flicked it over the bar, and Nketiah hit the base of the post. We should have gone in at least 1-0 up at half time, which would have looked like a decent half, but we had all the ball. But I did notice there was a lot, we didn't sort of fly out of the traps like we did last season. A lot of the ball, the possession we had was quite stale, a little bit horseshoey. There wasn't really an urgency to get the ball down. And, we're playing on like a nice, freshly cut pitch at the start of the season. It's not like the pitch is going to be chewed up, and not that they are these days at all anyway. But I did feel that we had all the possession, but I was actually a little bit bored at times in the first half. And I thought obviously when Declan Rice kind of took it upon himself to take the ball and break between the lines and then play that delightful little flick, that's the kind of thing that kind of got me off my feet. But it all just felt very comfortable for Arsenal. And I also felt that when Palace did get the ball, they were able to kind of pop the ball around quite quickly and get kind of into quite advanced positions in like outside our box in quite a quick sort of period of time. But I do feel that Palace weren't sort of super threatening. I mean, I can think of a chance that I think Ramsdale parried the ball out, back into kind of towards the edge of the box. But generally, there wasn't anything that Palace created that made me go, oh God, we're in trouble here.
They have a lot of players injured right now. Palace, they're missing quite a few players, I think. So they're struggling. They're struggling for bodies at the moment. So I think even on the subs bench, they had to name one sub less. They've really been on the ground, I think, for them at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I hear you. The Palace, I think with Palace, it's the unpredictable nature of them that sort of causes that chaos element there's a bit of frantic sort of rushing around, but. Yeah, from my view, I just think that we dominated the ball. I wasn't quite expecting us to have so much of the ball, but as you say, it's all very sort of safe and it's just very sedate, and there wasn't much penetration. And I noticed that a bit in the Forest game as well. To be perfectly honest with you, there was a bit of, and maybe it's sort of we're just getting started, we're just sort of spooling up, but there doesn't seem to be that extra zing about it. We did sort of have to really grind and to sort of shift through the gears to sort of get that extra pass going. And, you touched on it there. We had those two. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Eddie and Nketiah should have put one of those two away. Quite honestly.
Oh, completely.
Absolutely. If he's got aspirations of being a top tier striker in the Premier League for us, or, anybody else that we may end up flogging him to, he needs to be putting these chances away. He can't be a sort of 1 in 4 person chance. They were gilt-edged chances. I mean, it was very, very good. His movement on that first chance, the sort of ball that broke through from Saka sort of thing, and he turned Anderson.
Yeah, it was almost a bit reminiscent of West Ham at home on Boxing Day, the way he kind of sort of felt for his man and then just turned.
Yeah,
sort of spun off him. Basically, he sort of does all these nice classic number 9 centre forward kind of things, which are almost quite instinctive, aren't they? But I think for me, it was the Declan Rice chance that we kind of had out of nothing. It was really on a plate for Nketiah. And again, I don't want to get too into the stats of things here, but there was a stat floating around last week about, I think he scored 14 goals in 16 starts at the Emirates, but his goal scoring record away from home is, I actually don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but he barely scores away from home. So I don't know if he's got some kind of psychological hang up away from home. He's a lot more comfortable playing at the Emirates, but these are chances that he's done so well, as you were about to say there, that to get into the position. I think for me, the Declan Rice one, you just got to side foot power under the goalkeeper.
Just put your foot through it, Stop trying to be cute and get this little dink. I mean, what's he trying to? He's like 6 yards out and he's trying to like chip it over the. I just thought, just put your foot through it, son. Or keep it low to the ground and hammer it home. I mean, really. So here's the question for you: is he good enough? Is he good enough for us?
It's really hard to answer this question, because there are times where I think, he's a perfectly serviceable sort of replacement number 9. Because when you look back in the day, we used to have like 4 really good strikers.
Yeah.
We used to have Henry, Bergkamp, Arnu, Suka, Wiltord, all these players that could do it. But when I look across the league now, I think football's changed. Like you look at, Man City's got Harling and then Alvarez, and there's not really anyone else. And then you look at, when I think about Liverpool, they don't even really have like a proper out and out centre forward. So, yeah, I'm not too sure really. But I think he's not too bad as like a sort of a backup. I wouldn't want to rely on him for a whole season, but I think he has done quite a good job when we've needed him to. When Jesus was out, and I think he will improve. I think he will improve. I'm not anti him staying at the club. He just needs to add a little bit more ruthlessness in front of goal, because he's got the ability to play on the shoulder, to move, and to sort of sniff out good positions in the. And I guess some of it. The hard thing is sometimes is that if you're a backup as well, you're not getting the rhythm and the momentum by starting every week anyway. So that can also be a challenge. But I think he's potentially nearly good enough to be our backup striker, but I wouldn't want to rely on him for a whole season.
Yeah, I mean, the news came through today that Jesus is back up in training. You probably saw that as well. I can't wait for him to be back in properly in contention for a starting place, because personally, I would like to see Balogun given more of an opportunity before we sell him, but I think that's already done and dusted. I think he's halfway out the door. I think the club have sort of made their stance quite clear with that. I love homegrown players. I really want them to do well, and I really want them. I want the whole squad to be full of it. It'd be brilliant, but I'm just not so sure Eddie Nketiah is. I mean, I know he scored some really important goals, but I just don't think he's clinical enough. I really don't. I know he's bailed us out last year, and it's because of him. Well, it's because of the team as well. But a lot of it, when the pressure was on last year, I remember him getting some really, really important goals for us and sort of keeping us, ahead of City. But I'm just not convinced. And, the Palace game is a perfect example. If we want to be ruthless about this, we need to have been putting those chances away. If we look at the opposition, all right, let's not use Haaland as the example. Let's use Alvarez. I reckon Alvarez scores at least one of those chances.
To be fair, I think Nketiah scores one of those chances on most normal games. I was actually like the one thing for me with Nketiah when he normally plays is he's not in the game enough, if anything. But when he does pop up, like when he does kind of get in and around the box, he does tend to convert. To be honest, but I actually think he had quite a good all round game the other day. He worked his socks off. He didn't always get the ball, but he made sort of he was physical. He was a lot more physical. He was asking a lot of his opposition defenders to kind of, he's making himself basically felt and known out there. And had those two chances, and you know he was alert as well to the quick free kick that brought the penalty in the second half as well. So it's just a shame with strikers. They're so judged by their goal output sometimes that it almost does cloud over things. I'm starting to warm a bit more to Nketiah, to be honest. I wouldn't, if you said like he's going to be your number one, absolutely not. And you know, I do have my reservations at times, but I do think he actually had one of his better games for us, to be honest. And you know, if he just literally knocked one of those chances in, and let's say if he created the penalty, we missed the penalty and we won 1-0, everyone going, wow, Nketiah played well. I just feel like it's a really fine margin. If that little dink just falls under the crossbar, people go, wow, what a finish.
I know.
He's put himself around today and scored a goal. But the number 9s, I don't think we judge Jesus in the same way, because we know that he does so much more for the team. But because Eddie Nketiah is a penalty box kind of poacher of a striker, like his currency is basically, like, it's great to see him doing all those other bits. But when you're that type of striker, you almost, and he does change the way we play because he's a little bit different. He needs to score for people to kind of say he has a good game almost. Whereas Jesus can fluff a few chances, but then he might play, you know, last season he was kind of linking up the game beautifully and playing in Martinelli, Saka, Trossard, Odegaard for goals. So people never ever question Jesus because he does, like, he's almost got less to lose in that regard. Whereas Eddie Nketiah is a lot more scrutiny on him, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think with Jesus, obviously, it's the way that he pulls players out of position to sort of feed into the other guys. That sort of, it brings it all together. Whereas, as you say, Nketiah he's being judged on his output for goals, because at the end of the day, that's the kind of player he is, and that's the kind of player he wants to be. So, yeah, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. I don't know. I thought, you know, he needs to be putting those chances away. You know, he probably would have come off thinking, damn, we should have been 1-0 up by half time. The one thing I really want to talk about is William Saliba. Wow, this man. There was a moment in the game, sort of just, I think it was about half an hour in or something. So yeah. he messed up, and then he was in a sprint with, was it Jordan Ayew? I think it was.
Yeah. And
it was that tackle. You must know exactly what I'm on about. That sort of last ditch tackle that was perfectly timed. And I looked at and I jumped off my sofa and I was like applauding, because wow. And in fact, I mean, the whole game, Saliba just looked immense, and he looked so measured, and he looked so like he knew exactly what was going on. His anticipation, it was beautiful. That was like a dummy's guide to defending. That was absolutely incredible. The performance, I thought it was outstanding. What are your thoughts?
I think he's the best centre half in the Premier League and one of the best in Europe at the moment. I've actually been thinking it since the end of last season anyway, but it was one of those things where you want to sort of almost not say that, because people go, oh, you're just an Arsenal supporter that's pushing your own team's agenda. But I got to admit, in real time, I saw him lunge in, because he was the one to give the ball away. Because it all happened so fast, I was thinking, was he giving away a penalty there? Has he tried to overcompensate and lunged in? But when you watch the replay, it's just absolute perfection. I mean, and I think because defenders these days are so clean, they don't really go to ground anymore. You know, that almost makes it more impressive, that when he has gone to go to ground, it's as clean as a whistle. And if he messes that by a second either way, he's getting sent off. Exactly. Basically, we're down to 10 men. So I mean, obviously we can't. I don't think we can go overboard, because he did kind of make the mistake himself. But to be honest with you,
I know,
but his all-round game, like, I think one of the byproducts of us being kind of a little bit less fluent, you know, we talk about last season flying out of the traps, playing with our wide men, you know, looking lethal from an attacking perspective, but then shipping lots of goals, you know, at home. I actually think a byproduct of us maybe being a little bit more, you know, the way we're setting up at the moment, is that we're probably a bit more solid at the back. And to be honest with you, I know we're going to get to it shortly anyway, but in that last 20-25 minutes, when we're down to 10 men, I was nervous, because I thought, have they got the ability to kind of hold out with 10 men? Are the legs going to give way? But there was no point where I was going, oh my God, Palace are really getting on top here, really starting to carve out chances. I was nervous, obviously, but I thought we defended magnificently. That's about as good as I've seen
Yeah.
Arsenal defend for probably about 5 or 6 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
In that last 20 minutes.
I'll go with you on that one. Before we get to our defensive masterclass, there's one bit of, well, there's actually two bits of controversy, really. So we'll jump forward a bit. I mean, nothing really happened, I think, after that in the first half. I think there was an Odegaard chance that was tipped over just before halftime, but nothing else really to speak about. Second half, penalty. So, was it a penalty in your view?
Because it definitely was a penalty.
I think there was a block in the build-up.
I think the block was so minimal. The player, in my view, it was, when I watched the VAR replays, I thought they can't rule it out for that, because for me it's just the Crystal Palace player was never going to get near it anyway, because the ball was already being played in. Like that player would have had to recover half the size of the 18-yard box in about a second to even get near it, and plus the contact was so minimal. And I think the Palace player knew that they were not. I actually don't know who it was. I think it might have been Partey on one. I don't know what Palace player it was, but
I don't know the player.
But for me, it was almost like the Palace player. Well, I'm not going to reach it. If I use the gamesmanship that I've been blocked off, then that gives them something to look at. In fact, when they were saying it, and they were saying, "Oh, was there a block there?" I was thinking, "There's there's some contact there, but it was so soft." It wasn't like he'd stood in front of him, and it was not like a deliberate kind of like blocking. It was just player, and there's contact in and around the box in those situations anyway. The Palace player was never going to get there, and as soon as Sam Johnston kind of came out with his arms outstretched like that,
it was clever play from Nketiah there in that one, because as long as he got there before the goalie, the goalie was committed. It must be so hard for a goalie in those situations, because you can just sort of, I mean, what you do, you're committed. You just sort of, you can't, because Nketiah was never in control of the ball as well, because the ball just went miles away. All he was just trying to do is take it away from the goalkeeper, so the goalkeeper came out and made the contact with him. So I don't know. I mean, with regards to the block, I'm a bit like this. I think I've seen those sort of fouls and stuff given in free kicks before. So I'm like, well, why wouldn't you necessarily give that if it was a penalty? It just, I guess, consistency really is what I'm saying.
There just wasn't enough in it for me. When I saw it, I thought, that's not even really anything. It was like, for me, it's got to, like, it can't stray into the clear and obvious. If it's not like if it doesn't look clear, like, I use the eye test really and just go, well, is there really? I always utter those words to myself, when it's happening. Is there enough in this?
Yeah.
And for me, it was not even a proper block. I don't think the Palace player was going to get anywhere near Nketiah to begin with.
Yeah.
And plus, I actually think the blocking in and of itself was just not. There's nothing really in it. I think it was more of a desperation ploy from Palace, if I'm honest. But obviously, interesting that Saka picked up the ball,
going to say
towards the goal, and then it's become a bit of a tactic now, hasn't it? I don't, to sort of all the shithousery he happens to one player, and then the ball gets sort of delivered to the taker.
I read that Odegaard asked Saka to take it because. Yeah. So I mean, I hear what you're saying about the tactic of like, oh, I'll take the ball, but to take the slack, from the opposition team and then give it to you at the last minute. But I think in this instance, I get the impression that Odegaard sort of, if you like, pulled rank and said, look, let me do this one, sort of thing. And what I got to say is that, because it was quite a long build up to it. There was quite a big VAR check. It took a little while, but fantastic pen, brilliant pen, sort of inside of the side netting, just really under pressure as well. Tucked away, real sort of captain's performance, I'd say. Really, really, really good. But do you think that means that Odegaard is now our chosen penalty taker going forward, or do you think this is a bit of, Saka's going to be back in again, or what do you think?
I think he'll continue, to be honest, but I also think it kind of falls into this narrative at the moment around being unpredictable. I think, next time, a goalkeeper now looking at Arsenal, preparing for like Bernd Leno's going to be having to do double the research now on Saka's penalties, Odegaard's penalties, maybe Jorginho's penalties. You know, Fabio Vieira hits a nice penalty. Like, our penalties in the Community Shield are fantastic. So
Yeah.
I think Odegaard will keep taking them. I think he hits a good penalty. He exudes. I've never massively been a fan of Saka's penalties when he's scored them. To be honest,
Yeah.
they're a little bit. They're not really hit that firm. They don't really end up like, blasted into the side netting like a, dare I say, Harry Kane would score. But whereas Odegaard, he just exudes that calm. I like the fact that he stays quite central onto the ball, so you don't know. You know, he kind of runs up to the ball. Sort of the way he kind of runs up to the ball kind of leaves you guessing a bit more. So I'll be happy with Odegaard. But to be honest, I think we've got a few good penalty takers in our squad. I think it just adds that unpredictability about us at the moment.
Yeah. No, I'm more than happy for him to carry on. It's a bit sad. I mean, I hope Saka hasn't lost his confidence, because, you know, further down the line in the season, there may come a point where we're like, right, okay, we need you to take this penalty, and it's pressure's on, sort of thing. And he may, you know, I just don't want his confidence to be knocked by this. I just hope that that's not, you know, part and parcel of the reason of what's going on. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. I mean, he's quite a humble guy, Saka. I don't see him as being, you know, and actually, just it's good for him just to focus at the moment. I think on his game and you know, and just get us off to a good start in the season. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want the ball in the net when we get a penalty, and it was a good pen. You know, I think it was a great penalty, to be honest.
Yeah. Right, the controversy. So, I mean, you and I were messaging during the game, or just after, I think. And I think your words were something like, I think money's being exchanged here with the referee or something. Because, I mean, first and foremost, I feel sorry for Tomiyasu, because the first yellow card, let's roll it back, yeah? So, with, you know, the red card now. The first yellow card, you know, I looked at all the replays and things like this on Sky as well, and Tomiyasu had the ball in his hands for the throw-in for 8 seconds. For 8 seconds, and he's been booked for time wasting. So, and essentially what's happened there is Havertz inadvertently has thrown him under the bus by faffing around with the ball. But the referee has also, like, previous to that event, had a word with Partey, and I think there was a bit of, you know, shithousery going on from us and a bit of time wasting here and there. And so it was coming, but I do feel for Tomiyasu, you know, getting that first yellow for 8 seconds. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I think this whole agenda that the PGMOL are trying to push now around time wasting, I think it's already come undone, and it's shown the flaws in the system with this incident. Because how can one player be penalised for having having the ball for 8 seconds and then getting a booking? It just seems a bit skewed. You know, surely they're going to have to, you know, it's like you almost need to give a yellow card to the team rather than just the player. It's a bit weird. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, on that first one, it did feel very much, because in the build up, I think Partey and Ramsdale were sort of dicking around with the ball in the corner, and the ref was very clear, like, that is it. And then it was like later in that passage of play, the ball sort of finds its way into the left touchline out of play, and it did feel that Tomiyasu was just basically the fall guy for his teammates, which is, you know, from the referee's perspective, it is hard. If it's almost like that, the same mentality around persistent fouling. You know, you get those kind of, sometimes you might get a team that sort of has different rotational fouling. They'll pinpoint a player and they'll take turns to foul that player, so they can, you know, affect the player's rhythm. And it's hard to know who to book because 4 different players have fouled the guy. So I do kind of see that it's tricky to punish. It's tricky to punish
the individual instance.
Yeah, but and I have to say, having rewatched it a number of times, for the second yellow card, from one of the angles, Tomiyasu does have a slight pull at Jordan Ayew's shirt, although it is incredibly soft.
Yeah.
And Ayew does actually kind of like feel the slightest pull, and then he kind of stops and throws his arms out
Yeah.
and basically he's asking the ref there, what are you going to do about this? So I mean, you could argue it two ways. You could say it's super soft. Why is he giving a card for that? Or you could say, look, the letter of the law is if you tug a shirt, it is a yellow card. Because he did have a very small, brief tug of the shirt. So I mean, even if you say, okay, yellow card for that, because they were going to counter attack on us, and that's often a yellow card. But the first yellow card was just outrageous. I mean, I don't even think Tommy Asu was. He looks like such a nice guy. He doesn't look like someone who even knows what gamesmanship shithouser he is. But
he's not going to be doing that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, this is it. This is my point. I just think that you can't. I don't think you can punish the individual in that instance. I just think this is where it falls down. I just think this new way that they're going to sort of punish time wasting. I don't see how, like if it's a goalkeeper, how goalkeepers do it, like with the goal kick, and they take their time and then they spin they change side. That's very deliberate. There's no other player involved. That's one specific player. You can't. I just don't see how this is going to work. Imagine if that was a second yellow card for Tomiyasu, that throw-in. There's going to be pandemonium. I can't see this. It's not going to work. The guy's had it for 8 seconds. That is not a punishable offence with a yellow card. I think they have to rethink this. I really do. I just don't see how it works.
I don't think it's really. It's going to be like those red card rules from a few seasons ago, where for the first month of the season, penalties were being given left, right, and centre, and eventually it kind of gets walked back a little bit. I mean, I know they can't do it. I know they can't do it for this season, but I think what actually needs to happen is there needs to be some kind of stopwatch in the ground, that whenever the ball goes out of play, the clock stops, and as soon as the ball gets thrown back in again, the clock restarts, and then you just play 45 minutes
precise
plus whatever injury.
There's no need
to. In fact, just play. You just play 45 minutes basically. But whenever a substitution gets called, you stop the watch. Whenever an injury happens, the clock stops. Whenever the ball goes out of play for throw-ins, even if it's going to be for 8 or 10 seconds, just stop the clock and then just play. As soon as 45 minutes happens, have what happens in rugby league and things like that, where a big siren goes off and it's half time. That's actually the only way. I don't think it will stop game, because players will still stop the game to stop the rhythm of the other team and things like that. So there will be stoppages, but at least we'll get 45 minutes of football each half. I think that's actually the only way they can do it properly. But obviously we're not going to see that, this season.
Yeah, not going to see it this season. But yeah, something's got to. I think they've got to rethink this, because that was an awful decision to give him a booking on that in that instance, because he hasn't actually done anything wrong there. So yeah, I mean, after that, it was backs to the wall, and I've got to say, as well as we did defensively, I'm really quite surprised by how quickly we seem to fold and just sort of go, right, we're going to defend this. I know we've got 10 men and we're playing Palace away, but the sending off happened, what was it, like 70 minutes or something? You've got to think, we already knew by that point there was going to be a fair bit of that time added on. So we're looking at around about half an hour or so to play. We seem to literally recoil and just sit deep and just defend and punt the ball. And I thought, hold on a minute, we're Arsenal. Why aren't we getting on the ball? I know we're a man short, but they train. They practice this. Why aren't we getting on the ball and trying to sort of, I'm not saying we have to dominate the possession like we were in the first half or so, but we're still a very good passing team. Why can't we keep possession? Why are we punting it away all the time? I was genuinely quite shocked to sort of see how quickly we just decided, right, we're going to shut up shop. I've never seen us do that before with 10 men. I mean, I can't remember us sort of doing like that. We've always sort of thought and had a go. Hats off to the guys for defending it, but it was a bit odd, didn't you think?
I have to say, like, the longer the game went on, the better we got at retaining the ball. It was weird, because for the first 10 or 15 minutes, I'm with you. Like, we just seemed to just basically hack the ball away and then let them come back. Let's hack it away, let them.
Yeah.
And that's not so. I actually remember one moment the ball dropped to Ben White on sort of the edge of our area, and he had no one around him. And like, he's so good on the ball, he's so technically sound. And I thought, okay, all right, it's dropping to Ben White, calm player. And then he just literally just punted the ball away. And it went went just over the halfway line, and Palace came again. I was thinking, for God's sake, it's not like you had Palace players swarming around you. You literally had no one around you, and that to me was just synonymous with what we were like in that first 15 minutes. But I have to say that when Jorginho came on and when Zinchenko came on, things just seemed to get a bit more settled down. There was a lot more communication among the players. There was a little period where we had the ball. Jorginho knocked it out to the left. I think Zinchenko got hold of it, knocked it back in. We won a free kick, and then I think from that point we started to control it. But in fairness, I mean, you had the Odsonne Edouard header where the ball was kind of behind him, and then you had Tyrick Mitchell sort of slashed at one over the bar. But they create. I mean, I know they're not the best team going forward, Crystal Palace, but particularly without Zaha and Elise, who's injured. But I was quite buoyed by the fact that they created absolutely nothing, to be honest with you. But I do think when Jorginho and Zinchenko came on, it just gave us a bit more technical security, ability to kind of get our foot on the ball and not just lump it. Basically, just make sure we just retain possession. That's where you need these kind of experienced heads who've been and done it before. They just come on, get their foot on the ball, knock it backwards, just keep the ball possession, keep the ball recycled. And I felt so much more comfortable when those guys came on. That's why we can't get rid of Jorginho. We've got to keep him this season.
Absolutely.
I think he's going to be a great addition for that kind of stuff, really.
Yeah, I think he's going to play an important part in the thing. I mean, Palace had a bit of a. Just going back to the game, Palace had a shout at a pen. Do you remember the Eze one where he was it with Partey? But I think it's one of those ones where the attacker sort of stuck his leg out a bit more than the defender to sort of try and catch the defender. One of those sort of ones, really, which I don't think it was ever going to be given. But a little shout at that. But other than that, as you say, they didn't really offer up much, Palace, and I think a lot of that is possibly down to the fact that they're missing quite a few players. You mentioned Elise, they had Hughes as well on the bench. They had they've just signed a Brazilian as well, I think, like an attacker as well.
Francha, yeah.
So I think
he was injured.
So
I think going back to that penalty though, there was just nothing in it for me. I mean, I think it was Eze kind of got between two players, and it was just a coming together. It was not really like a deliberate move by an Arsenal player to block him and knock him over. So again, I didn't think that was a penalty either, to be honest. Just massive rush when that final whistle went. It was great.
I was pumping the arms in the living room. I was relieved that we got over the line, because I mean, it's the old cliche, but I can, like, even last season, I think that Palace might have sneaked an equaliser, last season. But the way that we've performed in the first two games of this season, it sort of reminds me, and I don't want to sort of tempt fate here, of sort of title-winning teams where they manage to get these results over the line and get the points on the board when things haven't been their fluid best. And the Forest game, we were great for the first sort of half hour, and then for the first half, and then the last sort of 30 minutes, we invited them onto us and sort of it opened up, and then we should have killed the game off. This was like a defensive masterclass. That last sort of 25 minutes, where I think we had almost every defender we had available to us on the pitch. Gabriel came on, Kivior was on as well as Zinchenko. They were all on, and it was just. For the defenders out there, it was, you kind of stood up and applaud at the end of it, because they were living and breathing every moment of it, and they loved it, the defenders. But fantastic result, 6 points on the board. I mean, the other thing I want to say is that Declan Rice, wow, what a player!
Yeah.
The general.
I feel like he gave us a bit of a tasting menu, didn't he? He showed us how to play 6, how to play 8. He was driving a few times. He sort of drove between Palace players, and then you saw him nipping into the edge of the box to scoop that ball over for Nketiah's chance in the first half. I feel like he was playing a very safe game in pre-season, knocking the ball backwards and sideways, playing kind of that pivot role. But I feel like this game he started to show all the different kind of exciting features, I guess, that he's got to his game. So brilliant to see, and I felt that he was awesome in that last 20 minutes as well.
Yeah, it's fabulous. His best game for us. I mean, I know we're only 2 games in, well, 3 games in if you conclude the Community Shield, but oh, what a result! I mean, just yeah, amazing, amazing. What we got up next? So Fulham at home. Surely we got to be looking
Yep.
at in this one. Surely we've got to
I
be.
think so. I mean, they've got a shocking defensive record as well, and Nketiah's playing on the carpet, so he'll be. He's probably 1,000,000% more chance likely to score as well.
Yeah.
I'm fancying us for a win, to be honest, and I think he'll go with the same. I think he'll go for the same setup. I mean, again, it's another team that's going to come to try and nick a point, really, or play defensively. And although they don't have Mitrovic anymore either, so I'm not sure what kind of threat they're going to have going forward. To be honest with you, so I'm quietly confident for this one.
Yeah, same here. So the things to note about Fulham. So Tim Ream is suspended. So he got sent off in their last game. So he ain't going to be playing. So they're going to be defensively. I mean, they were shaky already, but they're going to be even more shaky with him out. And up front, they brought in Raul Jimenez, didn't they, from Wolves? But he hasn't exactly hit the ground running just yet. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think they're going to absolutely. I think personally they're going to steamroller Fulham. I think this is going to be one of those games where we really see Arsenal play with swagger. You remember that game last season? It was Fulham away. It was actually at Craven Cottage, and we were in the pub together watching it. And yeah, it was poetry. It was liquid poetry, and I genuinely feel I think this is going to be one of those. I think it's going to be a 4 or 5-0 sort of thing. I think we're going to absolutely trounce them. I think we're due a big score, and I think the boys are get. I think Nketiah will get a goal. I think Ødegaard will be involved. Martinelli may be involved as well. Saka, possibly. There's definitely.
So you're predicting 7-0 then?
What about no? What are we going to say? Predictions. I'm going to stick my neck out and say 5-0.
Wow.
Yeah, I genuinely feel that confident about this game. I genuinely feel I'm going to go 5-0. I don't think Fulham are going to offer much. I don't think Jimenez is up to scratch. They're going to be defensively shaky now with Ream out as well. Who else is Pereira? I think he's not quite fully fit yet. Maybe as well. I'm
not too sure.
I think they're in for a pasting. I genuinely do. I'm going to go 5-0. I'm going full Steve Bold here. I'm very bold with this prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to go a bit more cautious and say 3-1 because I don't think we can seem to keep a clean sheet at home, and I do think these low block teams, when they do come to the Emirates, it never really transpires that we give them a good thrashing. I know we had the Forest game last season, but I think we struggle sometimes. I think we'll win. I think we'll break them down. I think it's just going to be one of those ones. It's going to be probably a bit of a rinse and repeat job of the game the other night. But I think being at home, I fancy Nketiah. I'm going to go Nketiah to have 2 goal involvements and a 3-1 win.
Wow, it's fairly bold.
Yeah, because I don't like it, but I think it'll be kind of similar game. They'll be defending really deep. We'll have all the ball. For us, it's about patience and just unlocking that door. And I think Nketiah at home is a bit more lethal than he is away from home.
Do you think he plays, or do you think Trossard plays instead of him? I mean, you obviously think Nketiah is going to play, but I'm just throwing the question out there for you.
Yeah, I just think Arteta loves Nketiah. I don't think he can put a foot wrong in his eyes almost at the moment. I think Trossard deserves much more of a go, to be honest. But I don't know why he's not. I don't think, did he get off the bench against Palace? I don't even think he did. But I think he'll just continue with Nketiah personally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of have to, don't you? It's really difficult for strikers, isn't it? You want to support them, but if you've got someone like Trossard chomping at the bit, and I think Trossard, like, do you know what I thought when in the beginning of the Palace game? I thought, oh, this would be a perfect game for Trossard. He would sort of come deep, play that sort of false nine. He would unlock the door, and like people like Saka and Martinelli could get more involved in the game. He would have tied the game together a bit more for us, I think. But yeah, at home, I think you go with Nketiah. I'm really looking forward to this. It's a 3 o'clock, isn't it? It's a 3 o'clock Saturday, so it's not really going to be on TV, is it?
No, we need a VPN sponsor if we want to start flogging that stuff. I know, Rob. I know where I'm going to be going for my crooked streams, and I'll probably have the police knocking on the door now. But shoot me. There's people doing real crime out there. It's not me.
Yeah. Anything else to go over from the world of Arsenal? You got anything else to chat?
No, I mean, yeah, like you say, Gabriel Jesus back in training. I think, considering his surgery apparently was just like tidying up a bit of scar tissue, I wouldn't actually. Maybe I'm being a bit optimistic, but I wouldn't rule out him not being on the bench. Maybe, and depending on the game state, being given 5 minutes. But it'd be lovely to see him back. But
I don't want to rush it.
Yeah, I think we. But I'd love to see him on the bench. And if we're winning, say 7-0 as per your prediction, maybe bring him on. But because you never know, he's quite a fit guy, isn't he? So I wouldn't actually rule it out. Maybe maybe they're trying to save it till after the international break. But that'd be great to see him back if he can make it. I think the other sort of news really is just about Nicola Pepe looks like he might be fine. Apparently, some Saudi clubs are talking to him. He might be gone. I think Balogun, Tavares, Holding, they've not been training with the main group this week, so I think maybe they're being earmarked to move away. So for me, I'm starting to worry a bit that we're not going to add another, because we've added 4 players. One of them's a goalie who's not probably going to play as much as we'd like. One of them's injured for the season, so it does feel like we're not massively short, but it feels like we're one signing short in my view still. So I would like us to do something else, and I'd like to be going into next week with our outgoings done, and then be able to maybe bring one more in. I'm still annoyed that West Ham seems to be getting close on Kudus now for, I think, 43 million euros. So seems quite good value, to be honest. But I'm hoping we've got something up our sleeves and that Gabriel stays.
Yeah, I want Gabriel to stay. Well, it would be nice to get someone else in. It is always nice to get someone close to the closing of the window. But I don't know. I think a lot depends, the Balogun situation. Maybe if that gets sorted by the week or close of the weekend, it will be interesting. We'll be interested to see. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for this week's episode. We got our predictions in. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. And good 6 points to start the season off, and let's keep that going on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll keep that going. Thanks everybody. Remember to hit like and subscribe. Send your comments in. We'll get back to you. And all that remains to say goodbye, I think. Catch you later.
See you guys.